During the first day of class, our protagonist's performance not only shocks the entire class, but also impresses the teacher, earning him the position of class president. However, our boy isn't doing it for the title. He wants to get close to a particular girl. In his previous life, he spent his entire time chasing another girl while completely ignoring her. The girl he chased treated him as nothing more than a pathetic simp. Now that he has been sent back with knowledge of the future, our protagonist naturally wants nothing to do with that girl. At the same time, he plans to win the heart of the girl of his dreams while becoming rich and outstanding. But before he can focus on those goals, he has to deal with the constant attention from the girls around him, each one trying to make him theirs. We begin the story by traveling back to the past. Our protagonist, Chen Hansing, was once a nobody who suddenly rose to become one of society's elites, and the youngest business tycoon. Naturally, he is surrounded by flattery wherever he goes. Meanwhile, Chen Hansing thinks to himself that he can't truly explain how it all happened. Everyone calls him Boss Chen, yet no one knows the real him. In his eyes, everyone is fake, approaching him only because they want something from him. Just like that, his entire life becomes a constant performance, forcing him to wear a mask every single day. He finds it all utterly exhausting. After another long day, our protagonist begins thinking about his parents. He realizes it has been a long time since he last visited them, so he decides that it's finally time to go home. Looking at the business card he received earlier, Chen Hansing glances at it once before, casually tossing it out the window. With that, he drives home. While driving, he becomes so absorbed in his thoughts that he fails to notice a truck speeding toward him. A blinding white light fills his vision. The next moment, he opens his eyes to find a girl confronting him. His head still throbs from the crash. However, the girl becomes puzzled when he asks who she is. Hearing this, the friend sitting beside him bursts into laughter. Chen Hansing freezes. As he pieces everything together, he wonders if this is all just a dream. But the moment he catches his reflection, he freezes once again. It finally dawns on him that he has been sent back to the past. Just then, a guy suddenly interrupts his thoughts. Chen Hansing listens as the guy lectures him about moving on after losing his first love. However, Chen Hansing simply stares at him in silence. The atmosphere quickly turns awkward as the guy fails to get the reaction he expected. Seeing this, the girl speaks up, noting that Chen Hansing can pretend not to remember what happened, but her decision not to go out with him still stands. Chen Hansing listens, but he is stunned when she suddenly mentions his mother. He doesn't understand why she brought her up, or how she even knows her. Regardless, she hands him a bottle of water, insisting that he wash his face. When Chen Hansing tells her there is no need, the guy beside her insists he stop acting tough just because he got rejected. Nonetheless, she leaves the bottle beside him before walking away. Turning to his friend, Chen Hansing asks if he really confessed to Zhao Rongyu. His friend tells him to stop pretending. However, the moment Chen Hansing asks who he is, his friend becomes furious, saying this is exactly why he warned him to stop smoking. As they walk to school to collect their university admission letters, his friend fills him in on everything. Just as expected, he confessed to Zhao Rongyu and was rejected. The next scene takes us to their school, where our protagonist receives his admission letter. As he accepts it, memories of the man sitting before him begin to surface. Lao Shu turns out to be his homeroom teacher, and in the future he will die of lung cancer. While the man chats with Wang Zibo, Chen Hansing's eyes land on a pack of cigarettes. He picks it up, urging his teacher to smoke less in the future. Touched by his concern, Lao Shu smiles and agrees. However, simply agreeing isn't enough for our protagonist. Without hesitation, he takes the entire pack of cigarettes. Just then, Zhao Rongyu and her group arrive, spotting him talking to the teacher. From their conversation, it becomes clear that our protagonist performed poorly in the entrance exams. Although he graduated, he was only admitted into a third-rate university. Because of that, one of the guys in Zhao Rongyu's group tells her to stay away from him. However, when Chen Hansing notices them, he simply becomes curious and asks which university Zhao Rongyu was admitted to. The guy immediately grows furious. Meanwhile, our protagonist smiles before commenting that Donghai University is close to his own university, meaning they'll probably run into each other again. Seeing how indifferent Chen Hansing acts despite being rejected, the guy steps forward once more, reminding him that Zhao Rongyu already turned him down and that he should keep his distance. Chen Hansing doesn't bother responding. Instead, he leaves with his friend, Wang Zibo. The moment he steps outside the building, our protagonist takes a deep breath and quietly enjoys the feeling of freedom. Compared to the life he lived before, the feeling is only natural. While on his way home, our protagonist remembers that he hasn't seen his parents for a long time. But at that moment, someone suddenly calls out to him and his friend. Chen Hanseng doesn't understand how he keeps running into them after his rebirth. Anyways, Xiao Rongyu approaches him, informing him that he hasn't written anything in her class record. The entire time, our protagonist simply watches her silently. She hands him a book, stating that it is meant to preserve everyone's memories. Meanwhile, the jealous guy in her group keeps staring at our protagonist. Suddenly, he shouts, asking where our protagonist is looking. Xiao Rongyu also becomes furious, accusing him of staring at her chest. But Chen Hanseng simply brushes it off. Anyways, he goes through the contents of the book and realizes that everyone has already written something. That includes the jealous guy Gao Yiliang, who stole a poem and shamelessly bragged that it belonged to him. Nonetheless, Zhao Rongyu hands Chen Hansing a pen, insisting that he write something as well. However, our protagonist simply hands the book to his friend, insisting that he write first. Wang Zibo eagerly writes something that he hopes will impress her. When it's our protagonist's turn, he pauses to think about what to write. After finishing, he hands the book back to Zhao Rongyu. This time, what he wrote wasn't meant to impress her, so naturally, everyone is a bit taken aback. Nonetheless, Zhao Rongyu tells him that it was well written. As a result, she decides not to report him to his mother for smoking. Once they leave, Wang Zibo can't help but complain that our protagonist rushed him, causing him to miss his chance to impress the school goddess. When our protagonist teasingly asks if that means he likes her, Wang Zibo immediately denies it. Anyways, the two of them continue walking and decide to grab something to eat. But at that moment, our protagonist remembers that he needs to spend time with his parents. His friend is a bit surprised, considering our protagonist always complains about his mother's nagging. Chen Hansing simply waves goodbye, saying that his friend wouldn't understand. As our protagonist arrives at the apartment complex, memories from his past life begin replaying in his mind. Nonetheless, he finally reaches home. After knocking on the door, he waits for a response. When no one answers, he calls out, insisting that his mother open the door. Predictably, his mom comes out, shouting and wondering why he didn't take the key with him before leaving the house. Our protagonist simply walks inside, commenting that it's hot. His mother tells him to turn on the air conditioner. As for his father, she explains that he is still at work before handing him a slice of watermelon. Our protagonist jokes with his mom, saying that she really loves him. She simply replies that he certainly knows how to joke, and just like that, she starts nagging him again. Our protagonist can only smile, finding the moment strangely nostalgic. While our protagonist is in the shower, his mom discovers his university acceptance letter. Chen Hansing overhears her excitement as she happily remarks that they will finally have a university graduate in the family. When she starts talking about raising grandchildren with his dad, our protagonist can't help but think that if she knew he ended up as a lonely bachelor in his previous life, she would probably kill him. At that moment, his father returns home from work. Chen Hansing naturally goes to greet him. His old man simply nods before switching on the air conditioner, while our protagonist quietly reflects on what a good father he has. Just then, his mother discovers a pack of cigarettes in his clothes, and naturally she is furious. She becomes even more annoyed by our protagonist's explanation. As a poor excuse, he tells her the same story we already know. Unlike his mom, our protagonist's father calmly reprimands him instead, which only irritates the woman even more as she blames her husband for always being too lenient. Later that night, the couple discusses our protagonist's departure for university. It turns out Chen Hansing wants to travel there alone, while his mom argues that her husband's constant agreement with their son is exactly why he never listens to her. In response, his father tells her that the boy is remarkably mature for someone his age. She listens as he insists they should support him as long as he doesn't do anything wrong. In the end, the woman can only agree. The next scene takes us to the following morning. Chen Hansing wakes up to the sound of his alarm, confirming once again that he has truly been sent back to the past. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, his mom is surprised to see him awake so early. When Chen Hansing tells her he is hungry, she simply tells him to go buy breakfast himself because she is too tired and wants to go back to sleep. This leads our protagonist to conclude that his mom is exactly the same as he remembers. Later, our protagonist heads outside to buy some eggs and bread. He is surprised by how cheap everything is, so he casually asks for the payment QR code. The The vendor looks at him in complete confusion. Only then does our protagonist remember that he has traveled back to 2002, when online payments didn't even exist. Even worse, he forgot to take any money from his mom. Embarrassed, he quickly makes up an excuse before apologizing to the vendor. Chen Hansing can't help but find the whole situation inconvenient and decides to head back home. However, he suddenly spots someone. The person turns out to be Zhao Rongyu, the high school goddess, out for her morning workout. She is momentarily stunned to see our protagonist. Unable to understand why he is awake so early, she immediately jumps to the wrong conclusion. Chen Hansing is confused when she tells him she knows how he feels. However, she also makes it clear that she has no plans to date anyone until after college. Our protagonist is completely stunned after hearing this. Looking at her, he can't help but wonder if there is really something wrong with her head. She asks if he really thinks she doesn't know that he only pretended not to remember her the previous day, just to get her attention. Our protagonist listens as she continues talking, inwardly noting that the girl hasn't changed at all. It turns out they have known each other since middle school, and her reason for rejecting him remains exactly the same. Fortunately for him, he has already reached enlightenment and isn't the same person he used to be. Still, he suggests they grab something to eat for breakfast. She agrees, pointing out that she should be the one treating him since he actually helped her with her studies. Because of this, our protagonist suggests going to a restaurant that sells steamed buns. After arriving at the restaurant near the Public Security Bureau, they begin eating. While they are having breakfast, a man recognizes Zhao Rongyu. When he comments about the disadvantages of overreacting, our protagonist looks slightly confused. Anyways, our protagonist casually remarks that he will still look young even in his 30s. Naturally, Zhao Rongyu wonders how he can say that so confidently. In response, he explains that he recently met a fortune teller. He recounts everything the fortune teller said, especially the parts about becoming rich and finding a good wife. Hearing this, Zhao Rongyu assumes he is simply joking and spouting nonsense. Because of this, our protagonist offers to make a prediction. The girl still believes he is talking nonsense until he points out that the restaurant owner and his wife make steamed buns differently. Curious, Zhao Rongyu takes a closer look and realizes our protagonist is actually right. Our protagonist isn't surprised in the slightest, since he already knows she isn't very observant. Taking advantage of the situation, he offers to read her palm and predict her future. Seeing the look on his face, she immediately becomes defensive. However, our protagonist assures her that he isn't planning to do anything strange and simply asks to see her hand. After some hesitation, Zhao Rongyu reluctantly holds out her hand. Chen Hanseng immediately slips into the role of a fortune teller. Predictably, she is shocked when he mentions several things that only she knows about herself. The moment he does, she becomes anxious to hear more. That is, until our protagonist teases her by saying that her future husband is standing right in front of her. Naturally, she becomes flustered and slightly annoyed after realizing he is simply messing with her. Our protagonist thanks her for the meal and decides to leave first. However, she quickly calls out for him to wait. Noticing the boss's wife staring at him, our protagonist jokingly says that his girlfriend will settle the bill. Unfortunately, that comment is overheard by the man who has just entered the restaurant. Our protagonist simply glances back before walking away. As he leaves, he can't help but wonder why the man looks so familiar. In the next moment, he freezes after seeing how Zhao Rongyu is interacting with the man. To make matters even worse, the boss's wife tells the man everything that just happened. The moment the man turns and narrows his gaze at our protagonist, Chen Hanseng doesn't need anyone to tell him to get out of there immediately. Zhao Rongyu is obviously confused, but our protagonist doesn't wait to explain and quickly leaves. The reason is simple. The man turns out to be Zhao Rongyu's father, and Chen Hanseng had just accidentally declared himself to be his daughter's boyfriend. It's finally the day our protagonist departs for university. Inside the bus, our protagonist sits with his friends while Wang Zibo keeps talking non-stop. A bit fed up, our protagonist tells him to be quiet. Apparently, he didn't get enough sleep and needs to rest. However, that thought dies the moment he hears his friend mention seeing Zhao Rongyu. Just then, he spots her outside, and as expected, the girl continues to ignore him. It turns out her dad's car broke down while he was planning to take her to the university. Naturally, the bus driver offers to help by giving her a ride since they're heading in the same direction. But at that moment, one of our protagonist's classmates steps onto the bus. It's the jealous guy, Gao Jieliang. Shockingly enough, he turns out to be a rich kid, and he's studying at the same university as Zhao Rongyu. Our protagonist simply watches as the simp tries to persuade her to ride with him, thinking to himself what a huge mistake the idiot is making. Our protagonist believes Zhao Rongyu's father would never allow his daughter to ride with a rich kid. After all, the man is a police officer and can easily sense trouble. Predictably, the man refuses to let his daughter go with Gao Jialiang, but he doesn't mind if she rides the bus instead. The girl considers her options. In the end, she chooses to ride the bus. This prompts our protagonist to suggest that Wang Zibo move to the front. His friend rejects the idea immediately. Chen Hansheng then asks if he'd rather let Xiao Rongyu sit in the front. His friend replies by asking why Chen doesn't move instead. Chen simply says he'd love to, but he really needs some sleep. During their banter, Xiao Rongyu approaches them while our protagonist deliberately avoids making eye contact. In the end, Wang Zibo gives up his seat while complaining that Chen is using him. Before leaving, Zhao Rongyu's father remembers that his daughter's university is close to our protagonist's, so he asks Chen to take care of her. Of course, the jealous Gao Jiliang is stunned that the man chose our protagonist over him, even though he attends the same university as Zhao Rongyu. A few moments later, it becomes obvious why Wang Zibo didn't want to sit in the front. The sun is shining directly through the broken curtain. Knowing the journey will take 6 hours, Chen Hancheng asks one of the attendants to help his friend. With that taken care of, he decides to get some sleep. Xiao Rongyu is speechless, wondering if he's avoiding her on purpose because of what happened when he called her his girlfriend. Because of this, she decides to see how long he can keep pretending. Unfortunately for her, our protagonist actually falls asleep, leaving her frustrated. Even her father begins to feel that something is off with his daughter. As the bus crosses a bridge, our protagonist slowly wakes up, while the passengers admire the Yangtze River Bridge. At that moment, he notices Zhao Rongyu quietly staring out the window and can't help but admit that she's truly beautiful. Next, Zhao Rongyu asks if he isn't surprised. Apparently, she's talking about seeing the bridge. The moment our protagonist turns to face her, their faces are only inches apart, embarrassed. She quickly jumps back while Chen Hansheng remains calm, pointing out that she doesn't seem very surprised either. Recovering from the awkward moment, she explains that she's been here before, along with countless other places. Our protagonist simply replies, "Awesome." Zhao Rongyu is taken aback by his one-word response. Let's just say our protagonist isn't interested in making conversation, and that only makes her even more curious about him. In this chapter, they finally arrive at their destination. Chen Hansheng strolls out wearing a pair of sunglasses as he tells his complaining friend that he warned him not to bring so much luggage. However, compared to Zhao Rongyu, Wang Zibo's situation is far more manageable. When Xiao Rongyu asks why he didn't bring much luggage, our protagonist explains that the university has already prepared everything, as stated in the admission letter. Nonetheless, our protagonist decides to leave after giving her directions on how to get to her university. When she asks where he is going, Chen Hansheng tells her that he and Wang Zibo want to hang out for a while. Only then does she realize that she is going to be on her own. Suddenly, she shouts our protagonist's name so loudly that the entire station falls silent. She calls him a bastard, demanding to know if he is really going to leave her alone after promising her father that he would look after her. Now everyone is staring at them as though they're watching some kind of performance. Our protagonist walks over and gently tells her not to yell, but she simply pouts in annoyance. Since everyone is already watching, he suggests they move somewhere else because if people misunderstand their relationship, it will be difficult for him to find a girlfriend in the future. Of course, that statement only makes her even angrier. Before our protagonist can say anything else, she suddenly bites him. The guys watching praise Zhao Rongyu's move, believing our protagonist must be some kind of playboy to deserve it. Eventually, our protagonist and his friend accompany her to the bus terminal. The entire time they wait for her bus, while she keeps staring at the bite mark she left on our protagonist's arm. Meanwhile, Chen Hansheng can't help but think that if word of this incident spreads, finding a girlfriend will become much more difficult. At the same time, Zhao Rongyu doesn't understand why she feels so irritated and angry at the thought of him looking at another woman when she was the one who rejected him in the first place. She calls out to our protagonist, clearly wanting to say something but falls silent the very next second. He simply smiles before telling her not to be upset. In response, she glances at him before lowering her head, avoiding his gaze. Wang Zibo notices her expression and immediately realizes what's going on. Acting as the perfect wingman, he suddenly comes up with an excuse. Just like that, he leaves the two of them alone, giving them some privacy. Seeing this, our protagonist is left a little speechless. Nonetheless, he turns to Zhao Rongyu and tells her that it's time for her to go. She nods, and our protagonist helps her with her luggage. After helping her settle into her dorm, Chen Hanseng is relieved that the job is finally over and decides to leave. But at that moment, one of Zhao Rongyu's dorm mates asks for his contact information while calling him handsome. Naturally, Zhao Rongyu is furious after seeing that. As for our protagonist, he sees no problem accepting the number of a pretty girl. The next scene takes us to Chen Hanseng's university. He never expected to return after 10 years. Lost in thought, a girl suddenly bumps into him. At first, our protagonist is slightly annoyed. However, he freezes the moment he realizes it's a beautiful girl apologizing to him. Chen Hanseng tells her there's no need to apologize. He's about to ask for her name, but the girl immediately bolts away. Thinking about it, our protagonist feels the shy girl looks strangely familiar. Nonetheless, he pushes the thought aside and heads inside. He walks over to the registration table for management and public administration students. After confirming that it's his major, the girl at the desk happily introduces herself as Hu Linyu, a freshman. Our protagonist immediately remembers her. In his previous life, Hu Linyu served as their class president for all 4 years. He also recognizes the man sitting beside her, who turns out to be their counselor. Anyways, our protagonist fills out the application for his dorm. Just like that, he's assigned to room 67 in Building 3. Chen Hanseng thanks them while secretly thinking to himself that he'll become the class president this time, purely for the experience. On his way to the dorm, he can't help noticing all the beautiful girls around campus. He thinks the girls at this university are incredibly attractive. No wonder students from other schools often come here. Unfortunately, he knows approaching any of them now would probably end in rejection because of his cheap clothing. Because of that, he decides to make some money first, and he soon discovers the perfect opportunity on the student notice board. The scene skips to nighttime. Our protagonist has just returned after picking up his mattress and bedding, complaining about what a hassle it was. Finally, he reaches his dorm room. He walks in and cheerfully greets everyone. One guy like Brother Hao immediately stops what he's doing and rushes over to welcome him. After giving our protagonist a firm handshake, he formally introduces the rest of their dorm mates. Chen Hanseng will be sharing the room with 5 other guys. Anyways, Dai Zhenyu turns to Jin Yangming and asks if he's really using the latest Motorola model. Our protagonist watches Jin Yangming, noting that the guy is still as much of a show-off as ever. Meanwhile, Yang Shichao offers everyone cigarettes while pointing out that he's the oldest among them. The cigarettes are handed out according to age. Naturally, our protagonist receives his third, while Guo Xiaoqiang gets his after him. As for Li Zhenan, the guy with glasses, and Jin Yangming, both of them refuse the cigarette. Of course, Yang Shichao can't understand why they would reject his kind gesture, while Guo Xiaoqing simply tells him to leave them alone. Our protagonist quietly observes their interaction, thinking to himself that none of these guys have changed at all. Just then, our protagonist seems to remember something. He recalls a particular spot in the dorm that was never cleaned during the entire 4 years. Without another word, he suddenly stops what they were doing. When the others ask what he's doing, he states the obvious, saying he wants to clean the place. The guys are impressed, and Li Zhenan, the guy with glasses, even offers to help. As they clean, the conversation shifts, and they suggest making our protagonist the leader of the dorm. To their surprise, our protagonist accepts the position despite the huge responsibility, and just like that, he officially becomes the leader of the dorm. The next scene takes us to the following morning. Our protagonist is annoyed by the loud ringtone coming from Jin Yangming's phone. Meanwhile, Li Zhenan, already wearing his military training uniform, asks if our protagonist isn't going to class. This causes our protagonist to remember something. He quickly gets up, saying he has to get to class, not because he's excited to study, but because he wants to meet the girls. In this life, our protagonist has his priorities straight. The group heads to their respective classes. Guo Xiaoqiang immediately complains that the girls in their class are the worst. Jin Yangming agrees, saying they can't compare to the senior girls who are much prettier. Turning to them, Chen Hanseng asks if they'd like to get acquainted with the girls. The boys simply shake their heads. Seeing this, our protagonist thinks they don't know anything because you'll only know how truly beautiful a girl is after she takes off her military training uniform. With that thought, he walks over to the future class president. Hu Linyu points out that he's the only guy among the 27 boys in the class who dares to approach the girls. Nonetheless, our protagonist introduces himself and asks if anyone happens to be from his hometown Gangcheng. One of the girls raises her hand, and as they chat, his dorm mates watch from a distance, thinking our protagonist is way too smooth with women, making them conclude that he's a playboy. Anyways, Hu Linyu asks him to help manage the boys in the class. But our protagonist isn't paying attention to what she's saying. He's far more interested in the shy girl, who just so happens to be the same person who bumped into him earlier. Hu Linyu admits she almost forgot about her, adding that she's also in their class and is her roommate. Seeing how strangely timid she acts, the future class president tells him not to mind Shen Yuchu. Apparently, both of her parents passed away, and she had to take out a student loan just to attend university. On top of that, she has extremely low self-esteem. In other words, our protagonist realizes that she's quietly working while studying at the same time. Because the girl was practically invisible, he notes that the first time he truly noticed her was during graduation. Back then, the moment she walked onto the stage, the entire atmosphere froze. In the future, the girl will develop more curves in all the right places. Back then, he never had the chance to get close to her because he chose the path of entrepreneurship. But now, our protagonist is determined to secure both her and the bag. The next scene takes us to the classroom. There, the teacher begins the class by suggesting that everyone start with a self-introduction. Following the teacher's instructions, a red-haired girl steps forward and introduces herself as Shang Yanyan. Immediately, our protagonist's dorm mate begins rating her, calling her an 8 out of 10. Shen Yuchu also steps forward to introduce herself, keeping her head lowered the entire time. Hearing the others give her such a poor rating, our protagonist simply thinks they have no idea what they are talking about. After everyone finishes introducing themselves, the teacher suggests that they elect a class president later, once everyone is more familiar with each other. After class, Chen Hansheng's dorm mates jokingly suggest that he become the class president, saying it would benefit him greatly, especially since he could skip classes and earn extra credits. Hu Linyu overhears their conversation, but fails to realize it is nothing more than boys joking around. Since she is determined to become the class president herself, she warns Shen Yuchu to stay away from guys, especially people like our protagonist. The innocent girl simply nods and takes her advice to heart. The next scene shifts to military training. The military instructor is furiously yelling at a student for having long hair and decides to cut it on the spot. Shockingly, the boy yells back at the instructor, and the heated argument continues. Watching the scene unfold, the girls begin wondering if they will also be forced to cut their hair. One of them is even on the verge of tears, because it took her so much effort to grow it out. They consider reporting the matter to their teacher. While Hu Linyu heads off to find him, our protagonist simply shakes his head, noting that she is still too young and doesn't know how to properly act as a class president. Because of this, our protagonist personally approaches the military instructor. The moment the man sees him, he immediately demands to know his identity. Chen Hansheng instantly stands at attention and introduces himself along with his department. Before continuing, he calmly suggests that the instructor put down the scissors. Feeling insulted, the instructor flies into a rage and declares that he will shave Chen Hansheng's hair instead of simply cutting it. The boy from earlier is about to argue again, but our protagonist calmly tells him to stay quiet. Turning back to the instructor, Chen Hansheng explains that the school invited the military personnel to train the students' bodies and motivate them. Because of that, he asks what would happen if the instructor's senior commander saw him holding a pair of scissors instead. Chen Hansheng is confident that the man fears his superiors. He even doubles down, pointing out that there is no rule stating that long hair is forbidden during military training. If such a rule truly existed, he says he would be the first to shave his own hair. The poor instructor ends up being completely schooled by our protagonist. After hearing Chen Hansheng's reasoning and suggestion, the instructor reluctantly nods and allows the matter to end. Just then, our protagonist turns to the boy from earlier, who turns out to be Jackie Chan, and tells him to apologize to the instructor. When Jackie refuses, Chen Hansheng calmly explains that the instructor can still make life difficult for all of them, and when that happens, everyone will know exactly who is responsible. Left with no other choice, Jackie Chan reluctantly apologizes. And just like that, our protagonist successfully diffuses the entire situation. Seeing this, Shang Yanyan admits that our protagonist is not only handsome, but also incredibly capable, and her friend readily agrees. Meanwhile, Hu Linyu is far from pleased to see this, considering our protagonist is her biggest rival. However, at that very moment, the military instructor suddenly stops Chen Hansheng. He immediately breaks into a cold sweat when the instructor tells him to run 5 laps because he caught him smoking. At that moment, Yang Shichao secretly laughs at his misfortune. As a result, our protagonist immediately snitches on him. Now both of them are punished with 10 laps. Naturally, the poor guy is absolutely furious. while our protagonist promises to make it up to him later. Eventually, they finish all 10 laps, and Jin Yangming gives both of them a thumbs up. While all of this is happening, Hu Linyu is busy trying to win over her classmates by handing out free ice cream. This causes the class to discuss just how effective her methods are. Although they admit that our protagonist is impressive for standing up to the military instructor, they also believe that compared to Hu Linyu, he isn't very good at communicating with the girls in class. Our protagonist overhears this and thinks to himself that winning over the girls is going to be much more difficult than he expected. Just then, he notices their department teacher chatting with one of the military instructors. With that, our protagonist comes up with a plan and silently hopes Hu Linyu won't blame him for what he is about to do. Meanwhile, their teacher breathes a sigh of relief after successfully diffusing the earlier conflict. Chen Hansheng approaches him and casually hands him a cigarette. Seeing him, the teacher asks whether he played a role in resolving the situation. Chen Hansheng doesn't deny it. The teacher is about to continue speaking when his phone suddenly rings. The entire time, our protagonist quietly watches and listens to the conversation. It turns out that the teacher's wife is a doctor at the hospital. Since the teacher will be busy, neither of them can pick up their daughter from kindergarten. Chen Hansheng politely asks if it was his wife on the phone. When the teacher nods, our protagonist immediately offers to pick up his daughter instead. The teacher reminds him that he is supposed to be attending military training. The two discuss it for a while. Since Chen Hansheng claims to know the city well, the teacher asks whether he knows Guluo Kindergarten. In response, Chen Hansheng gives detailed directions from the university to the kindergarten. He also insists that the teacher notify the kindergarten staff in advance to avoid making it seem like he is impersonating someone. The teacher agrees and hands Chen Hansheng a spare phone. Smirking confidently, Chen Hansheng guarantees that he will complete the task. As we already know, this is all part of his plan to secure the class president position. From his previous life as a business tycoon, he knows that private relationships matter. Even if Hu Linyu ultimately becomes the class president, our protagonist has already secured their teacher's approval, giving him an advantage that is far more valuable in the long run. The next scene takes us to Mr. Guo's daughter's kindergarten. As expected, Chen Hansheng has come to pick up Jiahui. Since the teacher has never seen him before, she questions him. Chen Hansheng calmly tells her to confirm it with Jiahui's father. She calls Mr. Guo and informs him that someone named Chen Hansheng is here to pick up Jiahui. She then turns to our protagonist and asks for his student ID number. Chen Hansheng reads out the numbers and Mr. Guo confirms his identity before hanging up. Afterward, the teacher apologizes for the misunderstanding, but our protagonist tells her he completely understands and that there is no problem. Turning to the little girl, the teacher tells Jiahui that Chen Hansheng has come to pick her up. Our protagonist takes her hand and reminds her to wave goodbye to Miss Xiaoyu. The two of them then head to KFC. While watching her happily eat, Chen Hansheng decides to ask the little girl a few questions. She nods cheerfully. The first thing he asks is whether she knows her teacher's phone number. She shakes her head. He then asks if she knows QQ. Chen Hansheng falls speechless as he realizes the little girl knows absolutely nothing. Still, it's understandable since she's just a kid. Later that day, both of Jiahui's parents thank him for looking after their daughter. Chen Hansheng says it was his pleasure. After all, it's much better than military training. Mr. Guo's wife comments that he has good manners and even invites him to their house for dinner over the weekend. Chen Hansheng accepts the fruit they give him and promises Mr. Guo that he'll become an exemplary student in the future. The next scene takes us to Zhao Rongyu's university. Our protagonist can be seen waiting for her. Moments later, Zhao Rongyu comes out wearing her pajamas and asks why he called her out so late when he should already be asleep. Her eyes soon land on the fruit in his hands. Curious, she asks where he got it. Chen Hansheng casually lies, saying he bought it at the community center. Apparently, the fruit sold there is very expensive, making Zhao Rongyu wonder if he bought it just for her. She wants to tell him not to waste money on such expensive gifts in the future. But before she can finish, Chen Hansheng tells her that as long as she likes the fruit, he doesn't mind. Just as Zhao Rongyu is about to respond, another student interrupts them. The young man walks over and explains that he has just returned from his internship and didn't expect to run into her. Hearing this, Zhao Rongyu congratulates him on completing his internship at the Jianye City Institute of Geology, while addressing him as Senior Zheng. Senior Zheng modestly replies that it was mostly luck before turning to Chen Hansheng and asking who he is. While offering him a cigarette, Chen Hansing introduces himself as Zhao Rongyu's classmate. Senior Zheng politely declines. Perhaps he simply doesn't like the smell of cigarettes. Anyway, the senior excuses himself, explaining that he has official business with a professor. Once he leaves, Zhao Rongyu explains that Senior Zheng is a talented senior favored by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. She also mentions that he once came to their class looking for a laboratory assistant. Hearing this, Chen Hanseng asks if that's all. Embarrassed, Zhao Rongyu admits that Senior Zheng personally chose her. Our protagonist simply responds with his usual nonchalant attitude. Zhao Rongyu quickly adds that she turned him down. Even then, Chen Hanseng barely reacts, almost as if he doesn't understand the hidden meaning behind her words. Pouting in annoyance, Zhao Rongyu tells him to stop smoking and wonders when he picked up such a bad habit. She then asks whether he has any plans for his future. Chen Hanseng replies that he's actually interested in a girl, causing Zhao Rongyu to blush. When she asks if the girl is beautiful, he nods, saying he's never met anyone like her. She then asks whether the girl might reject him because she's focused on her studies. Chen Hansing honestly replies that he doesn't mind waiting. Unfortunately, our protagonist has just created a huge misunderstanding. He's obviously talking about Shen Yuchu. But Zhao Rongyu is blushing furiously, convinced that he's referring to her. With that, she hurriedly runs off, thanking Chen Hansing for the fruit and saying she'll think about it. Meanwhile, our protagonist can only stand there speechless. After all, he's no longer interested in Zhao Rongyu. This time, the girl he truly wants is Shen Yuchu. The next scene begins in class. Mr. Guo believes now is the perfect time to elect the class president, since everyone should be familiar with one another by now. He encourages anyone interested in serving the class to step forward and recommend themselves. The moment he finishes speaking, Guo Xiaokang immediately urges our protagonist to step up. The only reason he wants our protagonist to become class president is so he can help him skip classes in the future. However, our protagonist isn't in any rush, making Jin Yangming grow a little anxious. After what seems like a while, Hu Linyu finally stands up, and Mr. Guo welcomes her to the podium. She confidently steps forward and begins by introducing herself. In case anyone has forgotten, she reminds everyone that she was the one who helped them sign up for their dorms. She then goes on to describe her strengths, making it clear that she will use whatever authority the position gives her to support both the teacher and her classmates. Just like that, she concludes her speech. The students applaud as she returns to her seat. As she sits down, the teacher thanks her for having the courage to volunteer and advises the rest of the class to learn a thing or two from her. When he asks if anyone else is interested in the position, our protagonist finally walks toward the podium. As usual, Shen Yuchu's face turns bright red the moment their eyes meet. The instant he steps onto the stage, his friends and nearly every boy in the class begin cheering for him. Even the teacher notices the obvious difference in the atmosphere compared to when Hu Linyu gave her speech. Our protagonist's speech is brief, focusing mainly on academics, personal growth, and making the most of opportunities such as scholarships. He promises that if he is elected class president, he will make sure everyone has a meaningful and rewarding university experience. As soon as he finishes, the students immediately begin discussing him. Unlike Hu Linyu, he possesses both strong leadership and organizational skills, giving him a clear advantage. Eventually, the class moves on to voting, and just as expected, our protagonist wins. It turns out every male student in the classroom votes for him, leaving Hu Linyu completely stunned. As a result, she quietly tells Shen Yuchu to remember that men are the most unreliable creatures. Later, she heads back toward her dorm, wondering what the purpose of her university life is if she can't even become the class president. Just then, our protagonist approaches her. Already annoyed, she assumes he has come to show off his new title. Instead, our protagonist invites her to dinner. She narrows her eyes suspiciously, caught off guard. Our protagonist is even more surprised when she asks if he only became class president so he could ask her out. For a brief moment, he thinks she is just like Zhao Rongyu. Nonetheless, he calmly explains that he simply wants to discuss matters related to the class president position. In reality, however, his true reason for inviting her is to get Shen Yuchu to come as well. Predictably, both girls show up. Our protagonist hands Hu Linyu his bank card and asks her to order the food. She takes the card, remembering that Chen Hansheng had already treated all the boys in their class before, so there is nothing strange about him treating the two of them to dinner as well. Once Hu Linyu leaves to get the food, our protagonist and Shen Yuchu are left alone. The atmosphere instantly becomes painfully awkward. The entire time, our protagonist kept staring at her, more specifically, her 36D assets. Whenever Shen Yuchu manages to look at him, she immediately becomes flustered and lowers her head once again. Eventually, Hu Linyu returns with the food in her hands. As they begin eating, she finally asks our protagonist what exactly he wants from her. Both girls are left stunned when he suddenly suggests that Hu Linyu should take the class president position instead. Of course, Hu Linyu doesn't understand and even asks if Chen Hanseng has gone crazy. Instead of responding, he asks for the real reason she wants to become the class president. Hu Linyu claims that she simply wants to help their classmates, but our protagonist tells her she can't fool him. Realizing she's been caught, she finally reveals the truth. It turns out she plans to become a civil servant in the future, so serving as class president will definitely strengthen her resume. When our protagonist says he expected as much, she shoots back, claiming he shouldn't pretend he isn't up to something himself. Without hesitation, Chen Hanseng openly admits that he only took the position because he wants to make money. Hu Linyu doesn't understand. So our protagonist explains that being recognized as the class president naturally builds trust, making it much easier for him to carry out his plans. Hu Linyu accuses him of using the class president title as nothing more than a tool, but he immediately counters by asking whether she isn't doing exactly the same thing. The entire time, Shen Yuchu quietly eats her dumplings in silence. In the end, our protagonist explains that he only wants the position for the first year and will hand it over to Hu Linyu afterward. The group is caught off guard when Shen Yuchu suddenly stands up to leave, claiming she's full. In response, our protagonist calmly tells her to sit down. Sure enough, she obediently sits back down, leaving Hu Linyu so stunned she almost swears at him. Ignoring her reaction, he gently pushes the bowl of shrimp toward Shen Yuchu. He reminds her that he bought dinner for them, so the least she can do is finish it. When she quietly refuses, her friend watches the interaction between her and our protagonist, wondering what exactly is going on. To everyone's surprise, Chen Hanseng suddenly takes a bite from Shen Yuchu's dumpling. Her face instantly turns bright red, while her friend immediately calls him a rascal. When he shamelessly claims he was simply talking to her, Hu Linyu tells him that's no excuse. Changing the subject, our protagonist casually remarks that Shen Yuchu is actually the prettiest girl in their class. Hu Linyu agrees, but for some reason she gives him a suspicious look before insisting that he keep it a secret to avoid attracting stalkers. That makes him ask why she keeps looking at him like that. As usual, she simply replies that all men are the same. With that, our protagonist decides they should get down to business. Deep down, however, he realizes that if he truly wants to get closer to Shen Yuchu, he'll first have to deal with her troublesome best friend. Confident in his plan, he assures Hu Linyu that she'll still become the class president in time to help with her civil servant ambitions. When she asks how he intends to make that happen, he suggests that she become his secretary. That way, once he resigns from the position, she can naturally take over as class president. She finds the offer too good to be true, believing things can't possibly be that easy. Chen Hanseng simply tells her to leave everything to him, meaning she has nothing to worry about. She then asks what will happen if she refuses his offer. Our protagonist states the obvious. She won't become the class president, since it's rare for a class to hold another election. In simple terms, she can kiss her dream of becoming a civil servant goodbye. As Chen Hanseng prepares to continue making his arrangements, Hu Linyu hopes he isn't lying to her. He responds with his most charming smile, saying that he is always sincere. Naturally, she is left completely stunned. Without another word, she quickly agrees to the deal before telling Shen Yuchu that it's finally time to leave. Chen Hanseng watches them walk away, silently thinking that his goal has already been achieved. The next chapter opens with our protagonist meeting up with his high school classmates. After clinking their glasses, Gao Jieliang wastes no time trying to get Xiao Rongyu's attention. Meanwhile, our protagonist notices Wang Zibo's gloomy expression and can't help but ask what happened. It turns out that in Wang Zibo's department, there are only 2 girls among 67 students. He sighs that if he had known beforehand, he would have chosen a different department, like finance. Hearing this, our protagonist asks about the 2 girls. Judging from Wang Zibo's reaction, they aren't even worth mentioning. Chen Hanseng immediately understands. Sometimes life can be really difficult. Suddenly, Gao Jieliang chimes in, saying that the main reason for attending university is to study. Wang Zibo simply tells him to speak for himself. Wanting to mess with Gao Jieliang, Wang Zibo casually wonders aloud about our protagonist's relationship with Xiao Rongyu. Understanding the assignment, Chen Hanseng plays along, leaving the poor guy completely stunned. While Gao Yaliang furiously curses our protagonist, Wang Zibo can't help smiling, commenting on how easy that was. Nonetheless, Zhao Rongyu suggests they change the topic to something more meaningful. They begin discussing what they've accomplished since entering university. Secretly, Gao Jialiang believes that with Chen Hanseng's personality, there's no way he could have achieved anything worthwhile. As a result, he suggests that our protagonist go first. Chen Hanseng simply lights a cigarette before calmly telling everyone that he is the class president. The group instantly falls silent in shock. Even Wang Zibo wonders whether he's being serious or joking. Gao Jialiang, on the other hand, refuses to believe him. He points out our protagonist's smoking habit and carefree personality, wondering how someone like him could possibly become the class president. Anyway, it soon becomes Wang Zibo's turn. He doesn't have much to say and simply describes his university experience as a whole. Our protagonist quietly listens as each of them takes turns talking about their universities, inwardly labeling them all as simpletons. As for Gao Jialiang, he believes this is finally his moment to shine. The guy actually wrote and memorized an entire manuscript just to impress Zhao Rongyu and convince her to visit his university. Just as he's about to begin, someone suddenly calls out to our protagonist. The person turns out to be Hu Linyu. As his secretary, she reports that the class will soon be organizing various activities and asks how much class fee he plans to collect as class president. The group is stunned to see such a beautiful girl approach him, while our protagonist wonders if all of this is really necessary. Nonetheless, he calmly gives her instructions before handing her some money. When she asks what she's supposed to do with it, our protagonist tells her to give it to Shen Yuchu. Hu Linyu is left speechless. Just then, her eyes drift toward their table, eventually landing on Xiao Rongyu. And just like that, her brain starts working overtime. Now it's our protagonist's turn to be speechless as she tells him not to eat from his own bowl while staring at someone else's pot. Chen Hanseng instantly realizes that she has misunderstood the situation once again because he isn't interested in Zhao Rongyu at all. Even after learning that Chen Hanseng is the class president, Gao Jialiang merely scoffs. In his eyes, the student union is far more important, and that's the position he's aiming for. Our protagonist can't help but smile at the coincidence, because that's exactly the position he's targeting as well. Hearing this, Wang Zibo wonders why he's so determined to pursue it. Unfortunately, Wang Zibo misunderstands the situation too, assuming our protagonist is doing everything because of Zhao Rongyu. Apparently, Zhao Rongyu likes ambitious and self-motivated guys. Chen Hanseng immediately tells him to shut his mouth, wondering if his friend has gotten drunk. Nonetheless, the gathering eventually comes to an end. Naturally, our protagonist escorts Xiao Rongyu back to her university. Just as he's about to leave, she suddenly calls out to him. Chen Hanseng wonders what she wants this time. As expected, she reveals that she overheard his conversation with Wang Zibo and believes he's doing all of this for her. Our protagonist is completely stunned, especially when she admits she's happy about it but still hopes he'll remain more reserved. Later, Chen Hanseng can only complain inwardly, wondering why, and more importantly, how. Xiao Rongyu still manages to believe he's interested in her. In the next chapter, our protagonist visits a logistics center. The Shentong Express branch is a rundown operation. The workers wear no uniforms, and fragile packages are handled without the slightest care. Even so, this will be the first step in our protagonist's plan to make money. Without hesitation, he hands a worker a cigarette and asks for the manager. The man tells him to head to the second floor, and our protagonist thanks him before making his way upstairs. Entering the manager's office, Chen Hansheng finds a man sitting behind the desk who asks what he is there for. Holding up a notice, Chen Hansheng explains that he came about the part-time job. Unfortunately, upon hearing that he is from the finance and economics department, the manager waves him off, saying it is too late because someone has already taken the position. The man returns to his work, but when he doesn't hear the door close, he looks up in surprise to find our protagonist still standing there. When the manager repeats that he already has an agent, Chen Hansheng calmly asks what he needs to do to replace the current one. The manager is momentarily taken aback. He asks if Chen Hansheng is trying to steal someone else's position. Our protagonist shakes his head, explaining that he is simply looking for opportunities to make money. The manager doesn't quite understand. The boy standing before him is only a freshman, and judging by his appearance, he doesn't look like someone desperate for cash. Naturally, he wonders why Chen Hansheng wants the job so badly. In response, our protagonist offers the manager another cigarette and jokes that he came looking for work, not to be interrogated. The manager accepts the cigarette but tells him it will be difficult to change his mind. After all, the current agent from Chen Hansheng's department is performing well, handling an average of 60 packages a day. Still impressed by the young man's persistence, he admits that he will give Chen Hansheng the position if he can surpass that daily average. In response, Chen Hansheng asks for the manager's business card while thinking that the conditions are surprisingly easy. The manager hands it over, and our protagonist immediately takes his leave. Watching him leave, the manager can't help admitting that the boy is quite interesting. It is the day of the school club festival. As our protagonist walks across campus, he formulates a plan to become an agent. To do that, he first needs to expand his network. That means building relationships with both shop owners and students. That is exactly why he decides to join a few clubs to get to know students from different departments. This also includes members of the student council. Although they sometimes treat ordinary students like slaves, the student council will greatly accelerate his plans. Just then, Chen Hansheng is suddenly pulled out of his thoughts while waiting in line. The two girls standing nearby happen to be his classmates. They ask if he also intends to join the student council. He nods, saying that he simply wants to better serve the class. Hearing that, the two girls discuss it among themselves for a moment. In the end, they decide to leave because they are also being evaluated for the position, and they don't want to compete against our protagonist. As they leave, Chen Hansheng promises to treat them to a meal another day. Unfortunately, the guy standing next to him doesn't seem pleased. He lets out a loud humph before walking away, leaving our protagonist completely confused. After waiting in line for quite some time, it finally becomes Chen Hansheng's turn. To his surprise, he finds the same guy from earlier sitting among the interviewers. He has barely started introducing himself when the senior abruptly interrupts him, rudely stating that they only accept girls from his department. Chen Hansheng is instantly furious. It is obvious that the senior is deliberately targeting him. Even one of the senior's colleagues notices something is off and quietly asks if such a rule actually exists. The senior replies that he will explain later. He quickly comes up with an excuse, claiming that students from Chen Hansheng's department usually handle business matters and solicit scholarships. Because of that, he believes a girl would be more suitable for the role. Hearing this, another student is shocked because they had accepted a male student not long ago. Of course, our protagonist overhears everything. Unable to hold back any longer, he bluntly calls the senior an idiot for refusing to use his brain. His insult shocks everyone present. Naturally, the senior flies into a rage. His female colleague quickly tries to calm the situation, urging both sides to settle down. However, Chen Hansheng steps forward and calmly says that he has never been calmer. Locking eyes with the senior, he is immediately asked what he thinks he is doing. Chen Hansheng angrily demands to know whether the senior has a personal grudge against him or whether the student council's recruitment process practices gender discrimination. The senior stubbornly repeats his earlier excuse. Chen Hansheng dismisses it as complete nonsense, asking what completing tasks has to do with being a girl. Besides, if girls are truly more suitable for the position, then he demands to know what the foolish senior is doing serving on the student council himself. His words immediately cause the surrounding students to begin speaking among themselves. Just then, a man walks in, wondering what is causing all the commotion. In response, our protagonist turns toward him and asks who he is. The man calmly introduces himself as Zuo Xiaoli, the vice president of the student council. When Zuo Xiaoli doesn't get the reaction he expects after introducing himself as the vice president, he is left completely stunned. Calmly, our protagonist suggests that they simply call security to handle the matter instead. The vice president can't believe our protagonist isn't acknowledging him or showing the respect he thinks he deserves. He is caught off guard once again when our protagonist casually introduces himself as the class president, even offering to call Mr. Guo and provide his number if necessary. Zuo Xiaoli has never seen a freshman act like this. Normally, freshmen are intimidated by seniors, but our protagonist carries himself with complete confidence. To make matters even more surprising, his classmates and dorm mates suddenly step forward to support him. Because of this, the female council member insists that they stop arguing and proceed with our protagonist's interview instead. Chen Hansheng agrees with the senior sister. However, the foolish senior, who turns out to be the deputy minister of the student council, boldly declares that he will resign if someone like our protagonist is allowed to join the council. That statement immediately catches our protagonist's attention. Rather than simply joining the council, He decides to aim for the deputy minister's position instead. His friends immediately support the idea, confident in his abilities. Besides, in their eyes, the student council only knows how to bully freshmen. Seeing this, Vice President Zuo Xiaoli points out that becoming the deputy minister isn't as simple as it sounds. Whoever holds the position is responsible for securing sponsorships for every major event. When our protagonist asks if that's really the case, the vice president proudly nods. To everyone's surprise, our protagonist calmly replies that he can do the job just as well. As expected, his friends immediately back him up, even suggesting that they replace the current deputy minister because our protagonist is clearly more qualified for the role. At last, the senior's name is revealed, Zhou Xiao. The vice president then brings up the upcoming freshman party. Since the event requires sponsorships, he asks whether our protagonist is willing to compete against Zhou Xiao. Jackie Chan can't believe such a contest is even considered fair. Zhou Xiao clearly has the advantage. After all, our protagonist is a freshman. While Zhou Xiao has already built relationships with local business owners, unfortunately for Zhou Xiao, he isn't competing against an ordinary freshman. He is facing the youngest and richest entrepreneur, someone with 2 decades of business knowledge and experience. Completely unaware of this, Zhou Xiao confidently declares that he will willingly give up his position as deputy minister if our protagonist wins. The moment our protagonist accepts the challenge, Zhou Xiao is visibly stunned. Chen Hansheng even reminds everyone that there are plenty of witnesses present, meaning Zhou Xiao won't be able to back out if he loses. Just like that, the group heads to the commercial district of the university. The rules of the competition are explained, and neither our protagonist nor Zhou Xiao raises any objections. Chen Hansheng merely scoffs inwardly because the rules clearly favor Zhou Xiao. The vice president will choose a designated shop, and each contestant must convince the owner to provide sponsorship for the freshman party. Without hesitation, Zhou Xiao walks into the selected shop and begins speaking with the owner. Yang Shichao, one of our protagonist's dorm mates, quickly notices the trick behind the challenge. The shop is a newly opened barber shop, meaning the owner desperately needs customers. Since Zhou Xiao is already familiar with him, the outcome seems obvious. Despite this, our protagonist pays no attention as Zhou Xiao successfully convinces the barber to sponsor the freshman party. Instead, Qi Wei, the female council member, decides to help our protagonist get started. Since he is a freshman, she figures she can at least introduce him before letting him handle the rest. With that, she enters another shop and politely greets the owner. After learning why she has come, the man suddenly slams his ledger onto the table. He explains that he can't afford to sponsor the event because someone owes him a large sum of money. For the first time, our protagonist is met with outright rejection. Even so, Boss Feng tells the group that if they can help him recover the debt, he will gladly use that money to sponsor the event. Qi Wei's expression immediately falls. At this rate, our protagonist is almost certain to lose. To everyone's surprise, however, our protagonist calmly volunteers to collect the debt himself. Even Boss Feng is taken aback by the offer. Still, he keeps his promise, adding that once the debt is recovered, he will use the money to sponsor the freshman party. When Chen Hansheng asks for more details, Boss Feng points toward a nearby shop. The debtor is a fruit seller. However, the intimidating aura surrounding the man makes it clear that he won't be easy to deal with. Seeing this, Vice President Zuo Xiaoli and Zhou Xiao are already convinced they have won. But our protagonist simply smirks and confidently tells Boss Feng that he will collect the debt. Our protagonist and his friends watch the fruit shop owner as he skillfully slices fruit with a large knife. Yang Shichao is already sweating, wondering whether confronting this man is really a good idea. Seeing everyone's hesitation, our protagonist decides to approach the shop owner alone. That only prompts the boys to follow after him, insisting they aren't chickens. Meanwhile, Zhou Xiao watches from a distance and wonders aloud whether our protagonist can actually win. The vice president looks at him in confusion, asking why he's even questioning the outcome, ignoring them. The group walks up to the fruit seller. When the man asks what they want, Chen Hansheng smiles and cheerfully replies that they've come to collect some money. The shop owner's expression immediately turns murderous as he asks whether Chen Hansheng truly wants that money. While our protagonist's friends are visibly frightened, Chen Hansheng remains completely calm. He explains that Boss Feng is his uncle, and that he has come to collect the money the fruit seller owes him. For a brief moment, hesitation flashes across the man's face. Suspicious, he asks when Boss Feng suddenly got a nephew. Our protagonist casually replies that such details aren't important. The fruit seller then insists that he doesn't owe Boss Feng anything. In response, our protagonist subtly gestures to his friends, leaving the man confused. The next moment, Chen Hansheng calmly explains that if the debt isn't paid, he and his friends will simply eat enough fruit to cover the amount owed. The fruit seller is left completely speechless. Without another word, he hurriedly rushes into the back of his shop. After searching for a while, he returns with a notarized agreement. According to the document, he owes Boss Feng 2,500 yuan. However, our protagonist confidently says the amount is actually 3,000 yuan. Then, without hesitation, he takes the notarized agreement and casually remarks that he must have misheard his uncle. Even so, he now has undeniable proof that the fruit seller owes Boss Feng money. Realizing he has been tricked into producing evidence, the man's face twists with fury. At that moment, our protagonist's friends immediately step in, urging the fruit seller to pay the debt. When the man stubbornly refuses, campus security suddenly appears and demands to know what's going on. The fruit seller hurriedly explains the situation. After listening, the security officer warns him that if incidents like this continue, his business could be banned from operating on campus. Naturally, this was all part of our protagonist's plan, leaving the fruit seller with no choice but to curse inwardly. In the end, he reluctantly pays Boss Feng the money he owes. Boss Feng is overjoyed. He openly admits that he never expected our protagonist to actually recover the debt. However, just as Boss Feng reaches for the money, our protagonist immediately stops him. Chen Hancheng calmly asks whether Boss Feng has forgotten his earlier promise, that whoever collected the debt would get to keep the money. Boss Feng immediately protests, claiming that's unreasonable. But Jackie Chan, whom the narrative now refers to as Zhu Chenglong, quickly argues back, reminding Boss Feng of his exact words. With that settled, our protagonist turns toward the student council members. Instead of handing over the entire 2,500 yuan, he gives them only 500 yuan, explaining that it is the standard sponsorship amount for the freshman party. The members of the student council are left speechless. Chi Wei takes the sponsorship money, and the council decides to leave. As it turns out, they are calling off the competition altogether. Naturally, Zhu Chenglong is furious after realizing what's happening, while Yang Shichao simply mocks the student council. As for Zhou Xiao, he silently walks away, unwilling to stay any longer and lose even more face. Later that night, inside our protagonist's dorm room, the boys are busy having fun, when Guo Xiaoqiang suddenly rushes in with an anxious expression. He hurriedly reports that Zhu Chenglong has gotten into a fight with Zhou Xiao. The group is stunned by the news. Before anyone can process what happened, the next scene shifts to Zhou Xiao's dorm, where a crowd of students has already gathered. Our protagonist arrives and immediately remarks that the situation has become troublesome. As he enters the room, he sees that both his teacher, Mr. Guo, and Zhou Xiao's teacher are already waiting. Mr. Guo comments that the timing is perfect because he was just about to send someone to look for him. Both teachers already know about the conflict that took place at the student council earlier that afternoon. But Mr. Guo asks whether Chen Hansheng knows what happened here. Our protagonist falls into deep thought. The moment he sees the smug expression on Zhou Xiao's face, he immediately realizes that the boy deliberately framed Zhu Chenglong. He could simply claim that he knows nothing about the incident and walk away. However, doing so would leave Zhu Chenglong to bear all the consequences, which could range from receiving a demerit to being expelled altogether. More importantly, as the class president, Zhu Chenglong's misconduct would also reflect poorly on Chen Hansheng's leadership. With all of that in mind, our protagonist quickly comes up with the perfect solution. Breaking the silence, Zhou Xiao's teacher asks whether Chen Hansheng has anything to say. Just as Zhu Chenglong is about to take full responsibility, our protagonist cuts him off. He calmly states that he knows exactly what happened. Hearing that, Mr. Guo immediately concludes that Chen Hansheng must have been involved in the fight as well and demands an explanation. Our protagonist simply promises to submit a written report. Mr. Guo nods and tells him that once the report is submitted, the appropriate punishment will be decided. For the time being, however, he instructs Chen Hansheng to apologize to Zhou Xiao. Without hesitation, our protagonist sincerely apologizes, expressing hope that Zhou Xiao won't take the matter to heart. With that settled, the medical staff examines Zhou Xiao's injuries. After confirming that there is nothing serious, the teachers dismiss the students who had gathered to watch and tell everyone to return to their dorms and get some sleep. Before leaving, our protagonist turns to Zhu Chenglong and tells him to head back as well. The moment everyone else leaves, Zhou Xiao suddenly speaks up. He tells Chen Hansheng to stop pretending. At first, our protagonist says nothing. Then he calmly replies that Zhou Xiao should be grateful they are on university grounds. If this had happened outside campus, he would already be dead. With one final warning, Chen Hansheng tells him that not everyone in society is as easy to manipulate as Zhu Chenglong, so he'd better remember that. Having said his piece, our protagonist walks out of the room like a final boss. Outside, Zhu Chenglong quickly catches up and tries to explain what really happened. Instead of listening, our protagonist simply kicks the idiot. Jin Yangming immediately asks whether Zhu Chenglong is all right. Rubbing the spot where he was kicked, Zhu Chenglong says he deserves it. Even so, Jin Yangming laughs and points out that the kick means Chen Hansheng has already forgiven him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts outside, where the two teachers discuss the day's events. Zhou Xiao's teacher remarks that Chen Hansheng willingly took part of the blame to protect his classmate. Mr. Guo agrees. Zhou Xiao's teacher then sighs and admits that although his student is intelligent, he is also narrow-minded. He believes Zhou Xiao has caused a major problem this time, making him unfit to continue serving as deputy minister or in any position within the External Relations Department. Mr. Guo nods in agreement. The two teachers then discuss how to handle Chen Hansheng's written report. In the end, Mr. Guo suggests that they resolve the matter themselves, instead of troubling the dean. The next scene takes us to room 67. There, Zhu Chenglong sincerely apologizes to our protagonist, while his dorm mates also speak up on his behalf. Rather than scolding him, our protagonist quietly hands Zhu Chenglong a cigarette, leaving everyone in the room stunned. He explains that he isn't angry. However, after everything that has happened, he is certain that Zhou Xiao will no longer remain the deputy minister of the student council. We are taken to the student council. Predictably, Chen Hansheng is appointed as the new deputy minister. Of course, he accepts the position and promises not to let them down. It turns out that Zhou Xiao voluntarily resigned after his fight with Zhu Chenglong damaged his reputation. Although our protagonist is chosen as his replacement, he will only officially assume the position after the Chinese National Day. The meeting isn't over yet, but the vice president decides to leave first. He tells Qi Wei and Shui Ping, whom we assume is the president, that they are making a mistake by accepting our protagonist. He even promises that they will regret the decision later. Once he leaves, Chen Hansheng asks if there is anything else to discuss. When they reply in the negative, he immediately takes his leave. Yuping points out that Chen Hansheng left without even acknowledging them, to which Qi Wei remarks that our protagonist will definitely be difficult to deal with. The next scene takes us to the Chinese National Day. Our protagonist and his high school classmates all decide to head home together. He is forced to ride with Xiao Rongyu because she claims she hates taking the bus. The one picking them up is none other than her father. As expected, Gao Jialiang is also joining them and doesn't miss the chance to irritate our protagonist with his indirect remarks. Soon, Xiao Rongyu's father arrives and tells everyone to load their luggage into the trunk. After that, the group gets into the car. Naturally, Gao Jialiang wants to sit beside Xiao Rongyu. However, our protagonist insists on getting in first, claiming it will be difficult for him to squeeze into the back seat if Gao Jialiang enters before him. Gao Jialiang agrees, but in the very next moment he nearly loses his mind as our protagonist casually sits beside Xiao Rongyu, saying he changed his mind. Of course, our protagonist is doing this purely as payback to make the guy furious. Gao Jialiang immediately swears never to trust our protagonist's words again. Xiao Rongyu's father watches everything unfold and can't help but notice that our protagonist is much skinnier than his kind-hearted father. Nonetheless, the group soon begins discussing the clubs they joined. When Gao Jialiang asks Xiao Rongyu whether she joined any clubs, she replies that she didn't because she received too many recommendations and couldn't make up her mind. Seeing this as his chance to show off, Gao Jialiang proudly boasts that he joined the propaganda department, passed the first interview, and will take the second one after the holiday. As for our protagonist's best friend, he sadly explains that he wasn't accepted into the group he wanted. The moment Xiao Rongyu asks whether anyone managed to join the student union, our protagonist calmly reveals that he has become the Deputy Minister of External Relations. Holding back his laughter, Gao Jialiang assumes our protagonist is lying. Sure, becoming the class president is believable, but the position of Deputy Minister is far beyond his reach. He even declares that he'll eat his own crap if it's true, while Xiao Rongyu's father silently observes our protagonist. With decades of experience as a police officer, he can easily tell that our protagonist isn't lying. So, as Gao Jieliang continues mocking him and throwing subtle jabs, our protagonist doesn't bother arguing with someone who is about to eat his own crap. Halfway through the trip, the car suddenly comes to a stop. Xiao Rongyu's father apologetically explains that something urgent has come up at the bureau, and he needs to leave, but the students can make their way home from there. After her father leaves, Zhao Rongyu naturally wonders how she's supposed to carry her luggage, prompting Gao Jieliang to eagerly offer his help. However, she ignores him and instead turns to our protagonist, asking whether he isn't heading home as well. He doesn't respond, but his best friend immediately steps in like the wingman of the year. Before Gao Yilang can volunteer again, Wang Zibo quickly drags him away, reminding him that his house is in a completely different direction. Our protagonist truly has the best friend anyone could ask for, but unfortunately, Wang Zibo completely misreads the situation because he believes our protagonist wants to spend more time with Zhao Rongyu. And just like that, our protagonist ends up carrying her luggage while she casually enjoys her snack. Wanting to tease him, Zhao Rongyu asks if he wants a bite. When he refuses, she pouts in annoyance. Our protagonist lets out a sigh and finally accepts. As he leans in to take a bite, he suddenly hears a familiar voice. To his shock, the person calling out to him turns out to be his father. Now, our protagonist finds himself trapped in an all-too-familiar and incredibly awkward situation. The next scene cuts abruptly to a nightclub. Our protagonist is enjoying a boys' night out with his buddy. The guy can't stop checking out the girls, prompting Wang Zibo to ask what happened after our protagonist's dad spotted him with Zhao Rongyu the previous day. Our protagonist misses his shot on the pool table while explaining that his old man was simply surprised and didn't overreact because he already knew Zhao Rongyu. Anyway, it soon becomes his friend's turn, but Wang Zibo keeps looking distracted. Our protagonist quickly discovers the reason when Wang Zibo points out that, despite the cold weather, the girls are still wearing revealing outfits. Our protagonist simply tells him that he wouldn't understand. Chen Hanxing sits down and lights a cigarette when one of the girls his friend has been staring at approaches him, inviting him out for a drink. In response, our protagonist points at Wang Zibo and tells the blonde girl that his friend is still single and completely inexperienced. Naturally, she walks over to Wang Zibo, teasing him as she asks whether that's really true. Watching his friend stutter helplessly, our protagonist quietly chuckles, believing his buddy genuinely needs this kind of experience. Sometime later, the two decide to leave the nightclub. When Wang Zibo asks why they're leaving so early, our protagonist explains that it's best not to get involved with girls who practically live at nightclubs. He is about to continue when something catches his eye, causing him to freeze mid-sentence. Curious, Wang Zibo follows his gaze. Both are stunned to see Zhao Rongyu and her friend, who are equally shocked to find our protagonist there. Seeing this, Wang Zibo urges our protagonist to leave while he handles the situation. However, our protagonist points out that Zhao Rongyu has already seen him. Besides, he has no reason to feel guilty because there is nothing official between them. With that in mind, he walks over and asks why she's here. He remembers her mentioning that she was going to a party, but her house is in a different location. Zhao Rongyu immediately fires back, reminding him that he specifically told her he was going to visit his grandmother. His silence is enough for Zhao Rongyu's friend to assume the worst, believing our protagonist lied because he was cheating on her. Before he can explain himself, Zhao Rongyu drops the drink in her hand onto the floor. Then, without saying another word, she insists they leave. She runs off while her friend continues calling our protagonist a scumbag. As it turns out, she had left the party early just to see him, only to catch him leaving a club instead. Meanwhile, Chen Hanxing is left wondering what exactly he did wrong. Sure, he lied so he could spend time with Wang Zibo, but he still doesn't understand why that should make him feel guilty when he isn't interested in Zhao Rongyu in the first place. Even so, Wang Zibo believes that if he doesn't explain the misunderstanding, he might lose her for good. Later that night, our protagonist decides to call her and clear everything up. Unfortunately, Zhao Rongyu's father is the one who answers the phone. As expected, he tells our protagonist that Zhao Rongyu isn't in the mood to talk. Dealing with a teenager's broken heart is proving to be quite a handful. Our protagonist had expected as much. From then on, he keeps calling every single day, to the point where he almost seems desperate. Each time, Zhao Rongyu's father is the one who answers. This time, our protagonist simply asks him to let Zhao Rongyu know that he is returning to the university. Her father passes along the message, hoping for some kind of response. Unfortunately, his daughter is too heartbroken and seems to have completely lost the light in her eyes. Feeling helpless, the man quietly looks at her after ending the call. When he gently asks whether she and our protagonist had a quarrel, she remains silent. Seeing this, he tells his daughter that her mother will be coming home soon, and she will definitely want to know what happened. In response, Xiao Rongyu excuses herself, saying she needs to wash up before quietly leaving. This prompts her father to ask whether she truly likes our protagonist. She immediately denies it with an angry expression, insisting there will never be anything between them. Back at our protagonist's home, he finishes packing for school, watching him prepare to leave once again. His mother can't help but think that her little boy is finally growing up. Perhaps the day will come when he gets married. Our protagonist simply smiles and replies politely. Before he leaves, his mother offers him some spending money. He refuses, explaining that he isn't short on cash, surprising her. After all, he still has the money he received from Boss Feng, with everything ready. Our protagonist bids his parents farewell. Before leaving, he jokingly tells them that if they have nothing better to do, they can argue with each other, but they definitely shouldn't fight. His mother is left slightly stunned. It's almost as though she no longer recognizes her own son. Because of this, she asks her husband whether they are really getting old. He wonders why she would suddenly say something like that. She explains that their son seems to be growing up far too quickly, and she feels like she's losing the chance to take care of him. Her husband smiles and tells her that's actually a good thing. It means they no longer have to worry about him. If that's the case, his wife suggests they should start looking for a suitable wife for their son. She hopes her husband knows a good girl from a respectable family. This is where things get interesting. The first and only person who comes to his mind is Xiao Rongyu. After all, the image of his son standing beside her is already deeply engraved in his mind. The next scene takes us to our protagonist's school. Chen Hansing walks through the rain without an umbrella, inwardly complaining about his terrible luck. Meanwhile, a girl stands at the entrance of a building, taking shelter from the rain. That girl just happens to be Shen Yuchu. The moment she spots our protagonist, she is about to wonder why he is walking in the rain. But then, the memory of the time he invited her and her friend out for dinner suddenly replays in her mind. Naturally, she immediately becomes flustered. As if on cue, our protagonist suddenly notices her. She quickly turns to leave, but our protagonist stops her. He tells her he isn't going to eat her and wonders why she always runs away whenever they happen to meet. When she gives no response, our protagonist is left speechless. Even so, he invites her to have a meal with him. When she remains silent, he assumes she is rejecting him. In reality, she is simply too nervous to answer. After gathering her courage, she finally agrees and softly asks what he would like to eat. Chen Hanseng suggests trying a new restaurant, estimating that the bill will come to around 50 yuan. Hearing that, Shen Youchu decides to return to the female dormitory first. Our protagonist agrees to wait for her, so she dashes off. Surprisingly, when she comes back, she isn't carrying her umbrella. Even more surprising, when our protagonist asks about it, she explains that she lent it to a friend. Chen Hansing can hardly believe she would do something like that. Seeing her nervously trying to explain herself, he can't help wondering whether she is simply too kind or just a little foolish. Nonetheless, the two of them share his umbrella and head to the restaurant. Once inside, they place their orders. Our protagonist simply watches as Shen Yuchu pays the bill. It turns out the reason she returned to the dormitory was to get some money. Even so, our protagonist still can't understand the expression on her face. Eventually, they sit down to eat, and he quietly keeps staring at her before asking if she isn't hungry. Instead of answering, Shen Yuchu suddenly becomes very interested in her food. Noticing that something is clearly on her mind, he asks whether paying for the meal has taken part of her living expenses. This time, she finally reveals what has been bothering her. It turns out she is working 2 part-time jobs, with the second one being in the cafeteria so she can save money on meals. When our protagonist asks if that means she isn't happy to treat him, she immediately shakes her head. He can't tell whether the girl is simply naive, but it is obvious that life has been very difficult for her. Out of nowhere, Shen Yuchu suddenly drops her bowl, the moment our protagonist suggests that she become his girlfriend. He is slightly stunned by her overreaction. To make matters worse, she believes he is only saying this because he once treated her and Hu Linyu to a meal. Honestly, our protagonist feels helpless. He calmly explains that he isn't forcing her into anything. He merely made a sincere request. As expected, the reason for her reaction is tied to Hu Linyu. Hu Linyu had repeatedly warned Shen Yuchu to be careful around our protagonist. Since she knew he was interested in her, she told Shen Yuchu to avoid him if she didn't want to end up falling in love. When Shen Yuchu decides to head back, our protagonist remarks that he is full as well. Since his dormitory is nearby, he decides to leave his umbrella with her so she can use it on the way back. As he leaves, he casually tells her to clean up the table. Shen Yuchu quietly watches him walk away. A moment later, she notices that he has left something behind. She quickly tries to stop him, but by then, our protagonist is already long gone. That is when she discovers what he left behind. Inside, she finds some money. It turns out our protagonist secretly left it for her. In the next scene, our protagonist finally pays Mr. Guo a visit. As a thoughtful gesture, he brings some gifts for the man's wife and daughter, which his teacher truly appreciates. Mr. Guo then calls for his little girl, telling her that our protagonist has come to visit. Jiahui immediately runs over, happily calling him Big Brother. To his surprise, the little girl proudly informs him that she managed to get Miss Xiaoyu's phone number and QQ. Our protagonist didn't expect the little girl to be so resourceful and decides to reward her with something later. For now, however, it's time for them to eat. Just as our protagonist is about to leave, his teacher brings up something concerning Shen Yuchu. Due to her family's financial situation, Shen Yuchu had applied for the Student Financial Aid Program for struggling students with Hu Linyu's help, but the application was unsuccessful. As a result, she is currently stuck dealing with the Youth League Committee. Mr. Guo tells him this because he wants to know if our protagonist can help her. When he doesn't respond immediately, our protagonist quickly assures him that it won't be a problem. Later, back in class, Chen Hansing and his friends complain about how exhausting it is to attend classes right after the holiday. Just then, Hu Linyu approaches our protagonist and asks if he has a moment. He follows her outside, where she immediately hands him the same envelope he had left with Shen Yuchu while demanding an explanation. Honestly, someone needs to tell this girl to mind her own business. Our protagonist, however, pretends to misunderstand her, jokingly asking if she's trying to confess to him. Hu Linyu ignores the joke and insists that Shen Yuchu asked her to return the envelope, which honestly catches him by surprise. He quickly asks whether that means Shen Yuchu opened it. Her overly protective friend tells him she didn't. Confused, our protagonist asks what exactly she wants from him. Hu Linyu seriously warns him not to hurt her friend. She points out that there are already plenty of beautiful girls around him like Yanyan, and even his high school classmate. Our protagonist doesn't understand why everyone has such a problem with him choosing Shen Yuchu. This causes Hu Linyu to furiously yell at him for giving Shen Yuchu 500 yuan. It's honestly pretty funny, considering she had just claimed Shen Yuchu never opened the envelope. Even so, our protagonist sincerely promises that he has no intention of hurting Shen Yuchu and would never force her into anything. Hu Linyu still looks at him with obvious skepticism. Regardless, she decides to let the matter go since the entire class trusts him. After a brief pause, our protagonist looks at her for a moment before asking whether she has any experience with love. Judging by her expression, he can't help teasing her, mentioning that several guys are interested in the girl's dorm. His words suddenly remind Hu Linyu of something important. She explains that many of the girls still don't even know the boys in their class. After hearing that, our protagonist remarks that organizing an outing would be a great idea, not only for helping the class bond, but also as an opportunity for him to get closer to Shen Yuchu. When he asks whether she has any suggestions, she proposes something simple like karaoke. However, our protagonist points out that it's too old-fashioned. Instead, he wants an activity where everyone can naturally split into smaller groups, almost like couples. Hu Linyu doesn't quite understand what he means, so our protagonist simply tells her to leave it to him. Thinking their conversation is over, she turns to leave. However, our protagonist stops her, because there's still one more thing he wants to ask. After thinking for a moment, he asks why she hid Shen Yuchu's situation from him. Hu Linyu is stunned. Our protagonist reminds her of the agreement they made at the restaurant that he would handle these matters. He respects Shen Yuchu's self-esteem and determination, but he tells Hu Linyu that she can't delay important matters simply because of her emotions. In response, she insists that she could handle it herself and was actually planning to visit the Youth League Committee. This time, however, our protagonist decides to accompany her, and she doesn't object. Later, Hu Linyu explains the situation to Shen Yuchu, telling her everything we already know. At first, Shen Yuchu doesn't understand, Then she notices our protagonist standing nearby. Of course, she immediately becomes embarrassed. The next scene takes us to the Youth League Committee office. The group enters, and Hu Linyu cheerfully greets the man in charge. Our protagonist happens to know Yu Yeping, who wonders why they have come again since he already explained everything to Hu Linyu earlier. Hu Linyu acknowledges that but asks how long the process will take. Mr. Yu admits that he doesn't know. To be frank, the process is very long. But Hu Linyu points out that she submitted all the necessary documents before the holiday, and it has already been more than a week. Mr. Yu simply responds in a professional tone that there are rules and procedures to follow. With that, he returns to his work. On the other hand, Hu Linyu realizes that, at this rate, our protagonist will think she is incompetent. As a result, she begins explaining Shen Yuchu's situation, saying that the girl survives by taking on odd jobs and saving money on food just to cover her other expenses. She says it as though it might change something. But to her shock, Mr. Yu maintains his professional composure and continues working. Fed up with his indifference, she finally snaps at him in anger. In response, our protagonist watches as the man calmly opens his drawer and takes out his official seal, asking if she would like to use it herself and take full responsibility. Blinded by anger, she actually reaches for it. Thankfully, our protagonist stops her from doing something foolish. He quickly apologizes to Mr. Yu, explaining that she isn't in the right state of mind. With that, he drags her outside. Outside the man's office, Hu Linyu continues complaining about Mr. Yu, while Shen Yuchu gently insists that she shouldn't get so worked up over it. The entire time, our protagonist remains silent, carefully calculating his next move. After letting out a sigh, he asks Hu Linyu for Shen Yuchu's application. She doesn't understand, so our protagonist explains that he'll take over from here. She immediately points out that it's useless, believing Mr. Yu is simply refusing to help and using the system as an excuse. Our protagonist can only shake his head inwardly. He explains that it isn't Mr. Yu's fault at all. The real problem is that Hu Linyu doesn't know how to deal with people. As someone with more than 2 decades of business experience and a deep understanding of human psychology, our protagonist already has a plan. His strategy begins by returning to Mr. Yu's office to apologize once again for Hu Linyu's behavior. The man gives a slight nod, indicating that he understands. However, he is caught off guard when our protagonist suddenly begins organizing the shelves. Next, our protagonist sweeps the office. Once he finishes, he refills the man's glass with water. When noon arrives, Mr. Yu leaves to get lunch. A few hours later, he returns, only to be surprised to find our protagonist still there. Our protagonist casually explains that he doesn't have any classes. He even brought something for the man. Mr. Yu tells him to return to his dorm since the office is already spotless. However, our protagonist replies that he isn't finished yet. At this point, Mr. Yu chooses to ignore him, believing it won't be long before the young man gives up. Unfortunately for him, our protagonist is unbelievably persistent. Day after day, he keeps returning to clean the office. Eventually, Mr. Yu gives in and agrees to share a smoke with him. At the rate our protagonist is going, if Truck-kun doesn't get him first, lung cancer just might. Anyways, Mr. Yu wants to know more about Shen Yuchu's family situation. Our protagonist explains that both of her parents are dead and that she currently lives with her grandfather, who is too old and sick to work. The more Mr. Yu listens, the more he realizes just how difficult the poor girl's life truly is. In addition, he finally decides it's time to discuss the serious matter at hand, her financial aid application. The next chapter opens the following day. Our protagonist is surprised to learn from Mr. Yu that the university actually has a policy encouraging students to start their own businesses. The man nods, adding that the school provides various resources to support student entrepreneurs. Our protagonist takes note of this discovery, but unfortunately, Mr. Yu explains that most students are far too ambitious. Instead of starting realistic businesses to make money, they all dream of becoming the next Elon Musk. Anyways, Mr. Yu takes out a form and hands it to our protagonist, instructing him to have Shen Yuchu fill it out. He also tells him that he no longer needs to keep cleaning his office. This turns out to be a different form, perhaps the main application required for financial aid. Apparently, Mr. Yu personally investigated Shen Yuchu's situation to verify everything. Now that he knows she is genuinely struggling, he arranges for the financial aid to be credited directly to her account. When our protagonist asks whether she will need to submit any additional certifications, Mr. Yu shakes his head. It turns out all the paperwork Hu Linyu submitted earlier was completely unnecessary and was never required in the first place. Regardless, our protagonist has successfully secured financial aid for Shen Yuchu. The next scene takes us back to his dorm room. The boys are excited because our protagonist is about to reveal something important. Without wasting any time, he informs them about the upcoming class outing. The moment he mentions that the idea originally came from Hu Linyu, the guys immediately give her credit. Unfortunately, the excitement disappears the instant our protagonist reveals that he rejected her proposal. He explains that going to karaoke is an outdated idea. If they do that, everyone will simply stick with the friends they already know. Instead, he wants an activity that encourages everyone, including the girls, to interact with the boys. Naturally, the guys are completely on board with the idea. That's when our protagonist reveals his plan. He thinks watching a movie would be a much better choice. He has already secured the tickets using the class funds, and everyone will draw lots to determine their female partners. Jin Yangming immediately declares that our protagonist is a genius, already imagining himself getting Yan Yan as his partner. Knowing full well that the guy likes Yan Yan, our protagonist jokingly tells him to go buy some cigarettes. Otherwise, someone like Zhu Chenglong might end up becoming her partner instead. This is officially Brother Hao at work. Anyways, the next scene takes us to class. Our protagonist walks over to Shen Yuchu and asks if she missed him. He hasn't been able to attend classes because he has been busy helping Mr. Yu process her financial aid application. Because of that, Shen Yuchu promises to help with his studies, even though our protagonist doesn't really need the help. At that moment, Hu Linyu walks into the classroom. Naturally, she is furious when she sees our protagonist standing so close to Shen Yuchu, assuming he is bothering her again. Finding the timing perfect, Chen Hancheng tells her that he has successfully secured Shen Yuchu's financial aid. Hu Linyu grabs the application form, her face filled with disbelief. She never expected our protagonist to be this capable. Seeing this, Shen Yuchu shyly thanks him. Our protagonist immediately starts teasing her, joking that she should repay him by doing the kinds of things adults do at night. Her face instantly turns bright red. Before things can get even more awkward, Hu Linyu interrupts by asking when the financial aid will be deposited. Our protagonist admits he doesn't know the exact details yet, but promises to confirm it later. For now, he wants to discuss the class activity, since he had already told Hu Linyu beforehand that he would come up with a better idea. After listening to his proposal, Hu Linyu quietly accepts it. Seeing no objections, our protagonist assumes her silence means she agrees and decides to leave. However, before walking away, he turns to Shen Yuchu and reminds her that no one is allowed to skip the activity. With that, he leaves. Watching him go, Hu Linyu becomes even more convinced that our protagonist will use any means necessary to make Shen Yuchu his movie partner. She reassures Shen Yuchu that everything will be fine, and tells her that if he tries anything inappropriate, she should scream. The girl quietly nods, indicating that she understands. Eventually, the day arrives for everyone to pick their movie partners. The class finds it interesting that the pairings will be decided through a lottery. Anyways, the drawing begins. Shen Yuchu doesn't participate because, just as Hu Linyu suspected, our protagonist has secretly arranged for her to be his partner. After the selections are over, Yan Yan walks up to our protagonist and asks for his seat number. Instead of answering directly, our protagonist jokes around, making her laugh. He is then caught off guard when she suddenly grabs his hand to check the ticket herself. As we already know, he is seated with Shen Yuchu. The moment Yan Yan sees the seat number, her smile disappears. Although she doesn't know the arrangement was intentional, she is clearly disappointed that she won't be his partner. Our protagonist is surprised by the sudden change, as her cheerful mood vanishes in an instant. She simply tells him to forget about it before turning around and walking away without another word. It's the day of movie night. Our protagonist's dorm mates are all dressed up, determined to finally put an end to their singlehood. Even our protagonist is ready, because to him tonight might as well be a date. As expected, Chen Hansheng heads to the girls' dorm. Along the way, he thinks that many people will probably become couples after tonight. However, he can't help but wonder what's taking Shen Yuchu so long. Moments later, she finally arrives, apologizing for making him wait. She is dressed in a different outfit from her usual style and shyly explains that she almost lost track of time while getting ready. Our protagonist simply nods and suggests they get going. On the way, they chat casually. When they pass by a snack stall, Shen Yuchu insists that she doesn't want anything. Helpless, Chen Hansheng insists that she should at least buy something because she doesn't know the movie is going to be long. Just like that, Shen Yuchu enters the hall alone while wondering if she has somehow made our protagonist upset. Just then, he appears behind her and asks why she's standing instead of finding a seat. Startled, she trips just like one of those K-drama heroines. Predictably, our protagonist is there to catch her. It's funny how girls seem so prone to tripping on perfectly flat surfaces. Chen Hansheng simply tells her to be careful before gently taking her hand and leading her to their seats. During the movie, our protagonist thinks to himself that he has already watched it countless times in his previous life. Now he has to pretend he's seeing it for the very first time. Looking at Shen Yuchu, he can't help but think that in his previous life, if someone had told him she was struggling, he never would have believed it. She suddenly notices him staring. Without missing a beat, our protagonist pretends to turn his attention back to the screen while quietly taking her hand. Our guy is a smooth operator. She is about to say something, but Chen Hansheng gestures for her to stay quiet, because the best part of the movie is about to begin. As expected, she keeps her mouth shut. Later, after leaving the theater, they talk about the movie. Shen Yuchu admits that watching a movie for the first time made her legs feel numb, so our protagonist immediately suggests they watch another one together sometime. When she remains silent, Chen Hansheng assumes she agrees. However, she actually has something else she wants to say. At that exact moment, the light from a nearby lamp shines across her face. Our protagonist freezes. The girl is simply stunning, absolutely breathtaking. He becomes so lost in thought that someone accidentally bumps into him. As a result, he unintentionally kisses Shen Yuchu on the forehead. The passerby quickly apologizes to both of them. Meanwhile, Shen Yuchu remains completely frozen, as if her brain is still processing what just happened. When it finally sinks in, she becomes so embarrassed that she instinctively pushes Chen Hansheng away. Just like that, our protagonist falls straight into the lake. Seeing this, Shen Yuchu is left stunned while the passerby rushes over to check on him. Chen Hansheng stretches out his hand and asks what she's standing there staring at instead of helping him. He eventually climbs out of the lake, but he's completely soaked from head to toe. Shen Yuchu repeatedly apologizes. Chen Hansheng simply tells her it's fine before deciding to head back to the dorm, sneezing the entire way. Watching him leave, Shen Yuchu can't help but laugh. It's the first genuine smile we've seen from her. Once Chen Hansheng reaches the dorm, he's surprised to find Jin Yangming already back. The guy explains that he has terrible luck and had no choice but to return early. Despite our protagonist arranging for him to spend the evening with Yan Yan, she did him dirty at the last minute by giving her movie ticket to someone else. As a result, poor brother Jin ended up watching the movie with an older woman. Poor brother Jin. It seems some things never change, as long as a girl named Yan Yan is involved. The following day, poor Jin Yangming is still heartbroken. He spends the entire morning singing love songs. Unfortunately, our protagonist has had enough of his nonsense. He furiously asks if Jin is the first or the only person to ever have his heart broken. After all, he's speaking from experience as a former simp who never got the girl. Still, Li Zhenan insists that our protagonist let him vent because getting over your first love isn't easy. He even recalls a girl from a neighboring university who once jumped from the third floor because of heartbreak. Our protagonist is shocked because he knows exactly who she's talking about. Although Li Zhenan quickly adds that nothing happened to the girl, Chen Hansheng immediately thinks of Zhao Rongyu. For that reason, he suddenly has a terrible feeling. Without wasting another second, he sprints toward her university. After rushing to her dormitory, he uses Zhao Rongyu's father's name to get past security. The security guard then informs her that someone named Xiao Hongwei has come to see her. In the next scene, Xiao Rongyu comes downstairs, wondering why her father has suddenly come to visit. Just then, our protagonist calls out to her and tells her to stop looking around. He quickly admits that he only used her father's name to get in. Sure enough, the girl is still angry with him. So Chen Hansheng immediately stops her, insisting that everything that happened that night was just a misunderstanding. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem convinced. Because of that, he boldly tells her that if she still doesn't believe him, he'll make a poster containing his apology and explanation and hang it outside her dormitory for everyone to see. Finally willing to listen, Xiao Rongyu tells him to explain himself. Chen Hansheng begins by saying that Wang Zibo wanted to hang out that day because of something involving his mother. Narrowing her eyes, she asks if that means his friend was the one who called him to the club. Chen Hansheng shakes his head. He explains that Wang Zibo only suggested hanging out, while he was the one who chose the location. Naturally, Xiao Rongyu asks what they did inside the club. He calmly answers that they simply played pool. He even adds that she can call Wang Zibo herself if she doesn't believe him. In response, Zhao Rongyu silently stares at him for a long moment without saying a word. Then she suddenly turns around. Our protagonist is left wondering if she's still upset. To his surprise, however, she simply tells him to accompany her to the library the following day and warns him not to be late. With that, she walks away, leaving our protagonist completely confused. Anyways, the next scene takes us to the following day. As expected, Chen Hansheng arrives right on time, still not understanding why Xiao Rongyu specifically asked him to come. Pushing those thoughts aside, he notices quite a few guys waiting around, presumably for their girlfriends. At that moment, Xiao Rongyu finally appears. Watching her approach, Chen Hansheng can't help but think that the scene looks straight out of a K-drama. However, in the very next instant, he is left speechless. The guys he thought were waiting for their girlfriends all swarm toward Xiao Rongyu instead. The girl completely ignores every single one of them before walking straight over to our protagonist and taking him away. Behind them, her group of devoted simps is practically left in tears. The next scene takes us inside the library. As they walk, Zhao Rongyu asks whether he isn't even a little curious about the group of boys from earlier. Seeing that Chen Hansheng genuinely doesn't care, she becomes slightly annoyed. She tosses her bag to him and tells him to go find them a seat. A few moments later, she returns carrying books related to our protagonist's department. Chen Hansheng jokingly replies that he had actually planned to study law books instead. He grins and says that if he can't keep up in the future, he'll simply hire a beautiful lawyer like her. Soon, the two quietly begin reading together. While studying, our protagonist notices a guy who keeps glancing in their direction. Knowing how popular Xiao Rongyu is, he asks whether many people have confessed to her. She casually nods and admits that there have been quite a few. At that moment, Chen Hansheng finally realizes why she brought him to the library in the first place. She smiles, silently confirming his suspicion that she is using him as a shield to keep other guys away. In response, Chen Hansheng studies her for a moment. Then he tells her that he has a way to make sure no guy ever bothers her again. She looks at him in confusion, not understanding what he means. In the very next moment, however, our protagonist suddenly kisses her. Sure enough, Zhao Rongyu's mind goes completely blank.